Welcome to another edition of Chicks on the Right podcast. We are here with our BFF, our financial BFF and BFF, Zach from Bulwark Capital. We're talking about Gen X being the forgotten generation in every single way. So there's a new article from the Economist, and they suggest that Gen X, those born between 1965 and 1980, I am one of those. And I feel like you're considered one of those. You're 82, right?
Mm-hmm.
They say that we might be the most overlooked and most stressed generation. So boomers complain. I feel like I'm not that stressed, but boomers complain about retirement. Millennials complain about housing and costs of stuff. Gen Z complain about everything, right? And then Gen X is kind of in the background, and we're struggling because apparently during our midlife, when we were supposed to be having our midlife crisis, and I can attest to this is when the bad stock markets hit. There was weak job growth. It was harder and harder for us to build wealth. We're stuck in that sandwich generation where we're caring for both kids and aging parents. And is Social Security going to run out? So let's talk about some stereotypes of the different generations, like money myths about each, whether Gen X is unfairly ignored in some of these finance discussions. But first of all, I want to know, just having your practice for as long as you have, when it comes to the different generations, do you see different saving methodologies with different generations? Do you see a difference in the generations?
Yeah, huge.
Really?
Yeah, it's really interesting to me because it does not follow the typical arc that I think people would guess at. So, for instance, and you talk about are certain generations, or is Gen X getting ignored? I hadn't really thought about it in those terms, but when you put it like that, I kind of think to myself, it probably is.
We're like Jan from the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, Marsha.
The middle child, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, and here's why I say it. Everybody talks about Gen Z and millennials being despondent, not having hope in the future, having more of a cynical outlook, which typically, right, cynicism, skepticism, all of those things are typically hallmarks of older folks, right? You would usually think that they're now, and there's all kinds of reasons that would back that up. We could point to that and be like, home prices, all the things that we realize. What is interesting to me, though, is that Gen X, by and large, seems to be much more skeptical than the baby boomers.
Yeah.
There is much more of a jaundiced eye around Generation X.
Okay.
And I think a lot of it has to do with what you just said, meaning there were so many baby boomers that 0809 was not fun for and was not pleasant for. But a lot of them, and think about in your own personal lives, a lot of them were established enough to where their life didn't fundamentally change, right? When you look at Gen Xers, I don't think it's hard to argue that we were by far the most impacted by 0809.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Right? Because you're earlier in your career, which by definition, you look at corporate America, tenure equals security, meaning if you want to know who's going to get thrown overboard first, it's the people with the least amount of seniority.
Totally.
Okay.
Yep.
Right. You're also least likely to get hired. How do I know that? Try being a 26, 27-year-old in the middle of the financial crisis, just starting out in the financial industry and calling people when the S&P is down 60% over the previous 8 months and asking them to trust you with their money. And then they ask you how long you've been in business and you say 6 months. Right? As you can imagine, that was kind of a tough sell.
A little bit,
right?
Just a little bit.
Little bit. And so once again, you kind of look at this dynamic where Gen X had virtually nothing to do with if you look at the housing crisis, that was truly a baby boomer generation moment, meaning the legislation that enabled that was in the late 90s, passed by baby boomers, right?
Oh my gosh, you never hear you will not hear the end of it from Gen Zers too, because they will constantly blame boomers for all of that. And they'll be like, we can't afford housing because of the boomers. Sometimes they lump us in with it too. Gen Xers are to blame for that too. Like they have it so easy, we have it so hard. But do you really think that, granted, yes, I will put some blame on them, but at the same time, I do think that our generation and the generation before us, we didn't we didn't live in laps of luxury and expect a lot of things that I think this new generation does. So it's more than just one aspect that we're dealing with. You know what I mean? It's an onion. I feel like it's not just one thing. Like a lot of these kids are used to so many wonderful things and they're not willing to give up the wonderful things. They're not willing to live with 5 roommates and have ramen noodles every night. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, yes, there is no question about that. And I even to be fair, I deal with that issue with my own kids, and my wife and I talk about all the time. One of our biggest concerns is, are there enough struggles?
Right.
Are there enough obstacles?
Right.
Because I grew up in an idyllic setting as a kid. At the same time, there were so many things that we were responsible for that kids today just aren't. And what I mean by that is, let me give you a really small example. You want to play with your friend, so you got to go outside, jump on your bike, ride down the street, and go knock on his door and see if he's there.
Totally.
Right? Just even something like that.
Totally,
right?
Zach. Yes.
And the reason you have to do that is because you tried calling him, but the phone's busy. Right? Somewhere millennials are going, phone's
what
busy.
are you even talking about? Yeah. I always tell my daughter, we were raised on hose water and neglect.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Like,
and we loved it.
We totally loved it. We were so autonomous. Our parents had no idea where we were until we had to come in for dinner, and we were just hungry and dirty,
Yep. Hungry,
and it was
dirty,
fantastic. What a way to live.
And slept like babies, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was that, and that was a shared experience, right? And you look at it today, and you don't see kids outside.
No,
right? Like it really is.
And I don't really want my kids outside because it's not as safe, So again, it's like a double-edged sword, right?
It really is. And then then like I said, then you get to the younger generation too, and you don't ever want to tell somebody not to aim so high, but it's not, because it's materialistic. But I want to look at them and go, listen, guys, let me just tell you something right now. I'm not telling you to lower your sights, but if you think that getting a job and quote unquote being successful involves high 6 or low 7 figures incomes and Lamborghinis, you've been lied to. Okay. I'm not saying it's impossible, but what I'm saying is that is a very bizarre outcome. Okay.
Right.
The vast majority of people that you think are having that outcome, it is a total ruse and is a total fake. And you can just look at the stats, right? If in the state of Washington, which is higher up the deal, I think the cutoff line for top 1% is $530,000. Okay, well, $531,000 doesn't pay for $250,000 to $350,000 cars and $4 million houses.
Right.
It just not even that, and $530,000 is an unbelievable amount of money to make per year, right?
Absolutely, agreed.
But these kids have just these incredibly unrealistic expectations.
Yes, they do. It's very inflated.
And I think that is as big a danger, if not a bigger danger, than reality on the ground.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, if you don't have expectations in terms of, and when I say expectations, I had really high expectations of myself, but they were based around what I believed I was capable of, and more importantly, what I was prepared to do for it, right? Meaning I had high expectations of myself because I was going into my job thinking no one will outwork me. Now, did people outwork? I'm sure there are people that outworked me, but it was kind of that athlete mentality, right? I'm going to go after this hard. It was not, oh, I'm entitled to that. That's just part of the game. I'm going to get that because I'm great, and that's what I'm going to achieve.
I got a 4-year degree, so I get a corner office in a BMW. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. Yeah.
No, it just doesn't. It just doesn't work that way. And the thing that you want to get across to them is you want to say, hey, I didn't say it was impossible, but it will be achieved by doing nothing that you think will achieve it. Meaning you need to become blind to everything else. You need to work like a dog.
Right.
You need to, if you think it's going to get done 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, you're lying to yourself. Right.
My gosh.
And I try to, and you try to tell people like, hey guys, you can't cheat life. Okay. You can't cheat life. When you get 8 billion people on the planet, there will be some people that just fall out of bed into a great thing and they tick us all off. Okay. But that is not a replicatable journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it that way. So, and I teach my little football team this. Guys, you will get out what you put into it, period. So if you're not busting your tail and you're not willing to push 60, 70, and sometimes 80-hour work weeks, do not cry to me about the fact that you're not getting the desired outcomes. And just meaning you will get out eventually. It will be very similar to the effort and the resources that you put in, right? And it usually takes a lot longer putting in than to get out, right? Usually there's a delay there.
Yeah.
Eventually, eventually you will get an ROI.
Yep.
But it's going to take a while.
I agree completely. Sometimes you have to take zero paycheck to do it. Mark and I did that for like 4 years. We did that without question. A lot of people who are entrepreneurs understand that. I think most people who are entrepreneurs understand that. Zach, how can people find you? Tell them all about how awesome you are, because you're awesome.
Well, I can tell you how easy we are to find. So go to bulwarkcapitalmanagement.com or knowyourriskpodcast.com. You can sign up there, subscribe to our podcast. We do it once a day. It's about 25 to 35 minutes. Go over everything that matters in the world of finance or any politics related to finance or investing. And then just today did about an hour-long interview with a buddy of mine that just put out a book about Warren Buffett. It put out interviews with specialists and folks in the industry about once a week. And yeah, between those, you can find out everything to know about Bulwark Capital Management, and hopefully you'll become a client. And we can all make a lot of money together, hopefully.
Yeah, skate around the Social Security. There
you go. And take advantage of so many of these other things, right? Like that in these era of governments running out of money, there's also all these wonderful investments that can protect you from it. And we're having a heck of a year, and hopefully we can tell you why.
Yes. Thank you, Zach. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Investment advisory services offered through Trek Financial LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. Any references to performance of securities are thought to be materially accurate, and actual performance may differ. Investments involve risk and are not guaranteed. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Trek 24308.